major problem in that area.
Congressman?
Well, certainly the beheading of the two gentlemen was an awful thing. It's absolutely reprehensible, and there's no excuse for it, and it digs deep into our guts when we look at it. As a psychiatrist, I know what it does to people. But the fact is that the president said some time ago that military would not be the way this thing would be solved. And his speech tonight was all about a military solution, strikes from the air. Now, we are going to become the Shia Kurdish Air Force in the eyes of the Sunnis. And then we're going to go out and try and get them to change their mind and be a part of the government in Iraq. We are making things worse for ourselves by doing that. What we should be looking at is, where did the money come from to finance ISIS? And I suspect we're going to find it in Saudi Arabia and in the Qataris. And the United States, the president was absolutely silent on who those Arab groups were going to be that were going to go on the ground, because we can be in the air at 30,000 feet, but who's going to be on the ground?
Do you have those same fears about the Iraqi army, which will be the boots on the ground, at least in initial, and the Peshmerga, that the Sunnis, who are the people that are living in the area that ISIS has taken, the folks that are the most disaffected and open to the message of ISIS as a counterforce to what they see as an oppressive sectarian government in Baghdad, are you worried that we essentially reaffirm those sectarian divisions if we become the Air Force for what is viewed as a Shiite militia in the form of the...
It's going to take great care and caution. It's going to have to be very deliberate, and we have to be very sure of what we're doing. Keep in mind that there was a Sunni revolt against al-Qaeda because of its excesses. That could and should be one of our goals, is to work with the new government in Iraq to bring into that government the Sunnis and to open the doors so that they have an opportunity to come back in. Will that succeed? We don't know, but we have to make sure.
Okay, in referencing the awakening, which is the Sunni awakening, of course, the part of David Petraeus' strategy centered around the surge, and also essentially buying off Sunni tribal leaders, peeling them away from al-Qaeda to fight al-Qaeda alongside the Americans, essentially. That is pointed to as a precedent, but it also seems like a dubious precedent insofar as the cement didn't dry. Right? I mean, here we are in 2014 facing the same sectarian issue.
There's a reason it didn't dry. Maliki. Right. Maliki was in power, and he pushed the Sunnis out of power, persecuted them, threw many in jail, and gave them a good reason to look to another way of dealing with their own future, and that turned out to be ISIS.
Congressman McDermott, the president said tonight that he welcomes congressional input into this, congressional vote. How do you understand that phrase?
I was insulted by it. He needs our support. The president can do whatever he wants. Clearly, he's the president. But if he
Do you mean that as a practical matter, as a constitutional matter, or as a legal matter?
I'm saying he can. George Bush proved you can pretty much do what you want. But with Abu Ghraib and a whole bunch of other things, you can. But if you do it without the support of the Congress, then you get blamed for it. And the president would be very reckless, in my view, for him to go in and start doing all this without getting a vote from the Congress. To say, I already have the authority and I would be glad to have you guys come along is really kind of condescending.
Congressman Garamendi, do you feel that way?
I don't think he has a choice but to have a vote. There is the thing called the Constitution. It says it is Congress that authorizes war. It's very clear. We're at war, and there's also a thing called the War Powers Act, which he has actually initiated by sending a letter to the Congress.
So you see this, he has sent a letter, there's the 60-day window of notification. Exactly. He sent that letter, the clock has started ticking on that under the War Powers Act. So you see a vote as a vote authorizing war?
There has to be, or else the war is going to stop. Plain and simple. The War Powers Act is clear. If you want a constitutional crisis, again, this is not about whether we have notified Congress about some detainees. This is about war, and this is a very serious matter. Mr. President, come to Congress, get your authorization. He laid out a strategy we should affirm that strategy if we want to and go forward.
I should note that White Houses and presidents, since the War Powers Act passed over a White House veto, have tended to view the War Powers Act the way Andrew Jackson viewed the Supreme Court, which was they've made their ruling, now let them enforce it.
317 of us said, Mr. President, you're going to have to come to us if you take further action, and he's taken further action. So I think there's a very strong feeling in Congress to carry out our constitutional power.
Congressman John Garamendi, Congressman Jim McDermott. Thank you, gentlemen, both.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Lots more coverage of the president's address coming up, but there's late-breaking news tonight concerning the National Football League and its handling of the Ray Rice incident. The NFL's Commissioner Roger Goodell announcing tonight